Hi, so welcome to this episode of the Listening Detective TV, where I'm really, really glad to have the wonderful Tony Edwards with us today. So welcome, Tony.
Hi, Cheryl. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Fabulous. So, I'm glad to have you. I was just saying to you before we came on air that the Academy call just this morning was all about how to manage stress with technology. So I'm very glad that we've got you here because you are the go-to guy when it comes to patience and tolerance with the keyboards that just don't do what we want them to do, aren't you?
I do try, yes.
Well, we'll come back to the try later. So today's subject, those who have been watching the series so far, this season's all about the word confidence, and we've had our guests on to just compare and contrast our different experience of what confidence means to us. So for you, what's your definition of confidence? What confidence is? What does it mean to you?
So for me, confidence it's almost a mindset, being able to either perform a role or a task to the best of your ability, but knowing that you're doing it the right way. If you kind of get what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many different variants on the word confidence. You know, you've got people that are naturally confident. For me, that I don't see myself as naturally confident. It's something I've worked on over a lot of years, as you know from conversations we've had in the past. So yeah, for me, confidence comes from doing something again and again and again until you become almost proficient at it.
Yeah. So confidence is something you become, and it's something you've worked at, and it's about knowing that you're doing it right, whether it's in a role or I can't remember the other word you use.
A task or a process.
A task.
Yeah.
And so just going back a bit on that, because one of the things we want to talk about is, you've already said it really, that you haven't always been confident. So if you took you through your journey of confidence and when you've become confident, what's worked for you to become confident? What's been the sort of process you've gone through yourself?
So when I was younger, I had zero confidence. I was the shy, retiring, little, young man that would hide in the corner. You know, I wouldn't get involved in. I wouldn't have, even a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have dreamt of doing something like this. Even this time last year, meeting new people in almost in networking situations was something that was almost alien to me. Yet, I've gone from doing that to running networking events of my own, and this. I guess I was always fearful. If I'm truthfully honest, I was fearful of the unknown, fearful of not being accepted. When I was younger, I was bullied a lot at school, and I think I kind of took that. I've carried that pain with me through my life, and it's only been the last 12 to 18 months, really, that I've started to let that go because it's been holding me back.
And that's how we met, isn't it? Because I heard your foresight, and I think from those who know the clarity process will know the why is about you and your story, and you definitely had the opportunity through the foreign network that we're part of for you to tell your story, and for it to be heard and witnessed. And so I'm making up because I infer that that's part of the process of letting it go. That we have to acknowledge it happened in the first place, and we need to be able to acknowledge it to ourselves, but have it witnessed by others makes a massive difference.
Oh, definitely.
Is there anything else that's happened? Because I know you've been telling the story. What's happened in the last 18 months that's gone from this sort of shy, wouldn't ever come on the screen, but now running your own network events? What's happened in between?
So my whole life has really changed. COVID changed my life. Meeting some people that we've got in common, Brad, Pippa, and those sorts, Ian Dixon, and those sorts of people. Again, Ian's a great guy, local to us as well. And the fact that I've met these people and they've kind of helped my confidence, and almost nurtured it to a degree, so I could see what I could become.
So what were you sort of seeing and hearing them doing? When you say nurtured your confidence, what did they actually do that nurtured your confidence?
So they gave me they've given me their time. They've time has probably been the biggest thing that they've given me. You know, Brad especially has given me. You know, we've had numerous phone calls. I've met him 3 or 4 times. You know, in a social setting, and he's given me hints, tips, and ideas on how to move my life forward, I guess. And you know, this time last year I was in a full-time job, which I didn't dislike, but I'd fallen out of love with, and I had that urge to start something myself, which had been there for years. My wife and I had a conversation about it, and it had been there for years, but I wasn't I don't think I was in a confident state to be able to get off my backside and start doing it. So having these conversations and that time with Brad and Pippa and other people within 4N and the mentoring group Now What Club, which I think you're a member of as well, aren't you? Has really helped me. It's opened my eyes to what is possible with just a little bit of self-belief, and that little bit of self-belief has gone from that to that where I am today.
It's interesting because I think my process is about the evidence you collect along the way, and sometimes we need people external of us to highlight the stuff that we're just not noticing. And having that feedback and have that time makes such a massive difference to confidence. So I do want to find out about the thing that you can help people with shortly, because I know that you're very confident when it comes to IT, and I know there's lots of people right now on the planet that are getting rather stressed by it. So I can't wait to sort of find out what you would recommend and some tips maybe also just for managing stress around IT as well, which I didn't tell you I was going to ask you that question. It's just come to me just now. So I'd let you percolate that in the background for a minute. But for you personally, because one of those things is that people often talk about confidence like losing it or building it up or regaining it. And so confidence for me is a transient thing. It comes and goes. You can be mega confident in one area of your life, but then, you know, I am mega confident in work, but then I go socially, I'm like, it's like, I don't know what to talk about here. I can do my full 60-second pitch, but if you ask me to talk about stuff, it's like, so being in 4N stretched me to do this 50% social. It's been like, it's those, so we all have our comfort zones, don't we, where we're confident. But for you personally, what is most likely to knock your confidence, or for you to, you know, whatever the expression or metaphor or model is for you, whether it's knocked or you have your confidence taken away, what is it that's likely to trigger you losing confidence? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I am. It's and it's happened a few times, especially, you know, in the last year or so, where it's typically people that know me well or know me well enough and probably should know better not to knock the confidence. They're the ones that tend to do it. Close family members have, you know, they say something and again, it's, I don't think they mean to do it. I just don't think they realise that what they're saying could come across in a way that's going to affect my confidence. Have
you got an example of kind of things that might get said? Because I think it's quite common. It was on the academy call this morning as well. We had this is quite a common, when a partner does not respond, or other close family members just don't get it.
A lot of it is because IT is quite. It's a broad spectrum, but if you haven't, I think again, it's typically in my family the older generation. They don't quite understand it, so I think they're somewhat scared of it, and because they don't understand it and are scared of it, they think that I'm wasting my time. They don't see the benefit. Very similar with networking. My wife didn't understand what I was doing at these networking meetings that I was going to 3, 4, 5 times a week at one point. So it sounds like you just sat there having a laugh. And it's like, well, there is a social aspect to it, but I've got these introductions, these opportunities, and these pieces of business just from going to these meetings 2 or 3 times a week. And it's all about getting my face out there, and it's helping me become who I want to be, and who you told me do you get what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, one of the things, and I want to sort of share, because I don't think I've mentioned any of this series, one of the things that can knock confidence, and particularly around this subject of being self-employed, and, I've had it, self-employed 20 years, and if I've had it said once, I've had it said 100 times, that when are you going to get a proper job, or do people really pay you for that, or why do you do that? And it took me a long time to realise, and having coached and mentored people around this, so one of the things I'm curious is what they actually are saying and doing. So that's one of the things with the detective hat on, we get really curious. Quite often when we lose confidence is when they've asked us a question that we don't know the answer to, but we think we should.
Yeah.
So I can relate to that. How's that making you money? And you're like, I don't know. I'm trusting it. I'm going, because sometimes it's like, well, other people have told me networking works. I don't know yet. It's all quite new to me. I haven't tested it out. I haven't measured it yet. So I remember Mark saying things like, so when will you get your money back on that? Or how much is that going to cost you? And I'm like, I hadn't thought about that. I just did the training because I liked it. And so it used to feel like a knockback, but I've come to realise that actually if we can just answer the question, then they get their question answered and they get reassured. And so it's sometimes, if anyone in your family says something to any of you now and you feel like your confidence is knocked, it's actually an opportunity to just check you have checked everything.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they can see and hear things that you can't. And I remember saying to my dad one year, he said about this proper job, I said, look, Dad, when I get a proper job, then what happens? He goes, I can stop worrying about you. And I said, okay. And it turned out he was actually keeping his savings behind because he thought I didn't have much money and I was self-employed. He was keeping it and he wasn't going on holiday and he wasn't doing stuff with this money because he thought I might need it. Yeah. So I said, look, have I ever come to you for money? He went, no. I said, so, but I also had to own the fact, quite often when I was around him, I'd moan about money. And I moan about the job. So I thought, actually, I've got to own the fact, what worry have I put in their mind that's triggering these kinds of questions, or he's trying to make me get a proper job. He says the same about where I live. He says he thinks I should move to a nicer area. But I have been able to, I think when we can answer the people and say, this is why, this is building relationships, like you very clearly were able to say what's the evidence of why networking works. Yeah. But sometimes in life, we're asked questions we don't know the answer to, and then we can lose confidence because we can't tell them straight away. But so my tip with anybody, if you get that, is just say to them, I don't know yet, but I'll come back to you. Because when you can answer that question, they'll be reassured, especially if they are people that care about you, and you'll be wiser. Yes. Because you might discover that you are wasting your time and you're doing something that is quite comfortable because it's socialising, and actually you're spending more time doing it than you need to be doing it. And so those questions can be quite challenging, and I've seen people many a time get knocked on that. So I'm just thinking, Brad's obviously, he's really good at hearing and seeing the potential in people, isn't he? And he will give you ideas of what you can do. So that sounds like a strategy that's worked for you when people can give you the time. So what is it about people having time for you that has built your confidence up? What do you infer, or what's the impact of them having given you that time? What do you sort of, we use the expression here that it's what do you make up about that situation that is obviously changing how you feel as a result of that behaviour that they're doing?
So I think with that in mind, it all takes me back to when I was younger, and the way I was. It's almost that when I was a kid, I was treated badly by other children, as you know, and I think because I didn't feel accepted then, I think I'm treating it now as a form of acceptance, which in hand, because I'm being accepted, it's making me feel good. The endorphins in the brain are kicking in, making me feel almost giving myself more self-belief, which in turn is turning into confidence in my ability. I think that's the best way I can explain. I can explain it.
It's absolutely, and that's why we work so hard at Step by Step Listening about the non-judgmental listening, because I think that as humans, we can inadvertently make people feel not okay being themselves. Just by asking them a question or challenging them on something, or giving them some observation and like, I don't see how that's working, or just snarling, like what are you doing, like that. So we can often, just by being human, inadvertently make someone sort of or infer that what they're doing is not okay. And so we have to be conscious of that all the time, I think, as people. But often people are just being curious, and so it's like, how do we get ourselves resourced? And I know that what's worked for you, and I've listened to the story, is that you've got a support network where you know absolutely you're accepted, and there's a sense of belonging. And when we've got that support network where we're absolutely secure that we're belonging and we're accepted, we're more resilient to what other people have got to say, because we've got enough feedback and enough support to talk things through. If we get on wobbly grounds with things. So now to your IT. So I don't know if I framed it like this in your questions, but in terms of IT, obviously we've had loads of people have had to go online, haven't they? With the COVID. So I had my Facebook manager saying she was teaching her mum how to use Zoom for a quiz. She said it was, I won't say that because it won't be very fair to mum, but you can imagine the conversation. It was an hour and a half with Zoom messages and Facebook Messenger trying to show her how to press the buttons. So there's been a lot of people on quite steep learning curves as far as technology is concerned. People have had to learn. So what would be your suggestions or your tips, or what's the first thing to do to be more confident with technology and IT?
So in terms of, it's finding a platform or a device that you feel comfortable with. The market is flooded with various different laptops, desktops, even smartphones. You've got all shapes, sizes, flavors, and it's finding a device that is right for you. We're in some of the same Facebook groups, Cheryl, and you quite often see, I'm thinking about getting this phone. What do people think? And you get naysayers saying no. You get others saying, oh yeah. And it's all about finding the right device for you. I'm an IT guy, and when people hear this, they're quite shocked. I prefer Apple products to Windows. I'm proficient on both, but my personal preference is an Apple device because of past experiences with Windows devices. You can spend £900 on a Windows laptop and something can go wrong like that. You can spend £1,200 on a Mac, and again, you can have the same issue. However, my experience is the Mac devices last longer, which is why I choose to buy Apple. So it's all about finding what's right for you, and then finding the right people to support you in your learning. And that can be through things like digital upskill courses to YouTube videos and more. There are IT support companies out there, myself included, that will do basic IT training for people. And again, I did like you said, the example there with your mum and Zoom. I did a 45-minute session yesterday with a former colleague from my previous job. He didn't know how to put Zoom onto his machine, so we did a remote screen share so I could see his screen, and I walked him through the process.
Yeah. That's the beauty of people like that. So it's basically the two tips then is do what works right for you, and it's being careful, I guess, about putting out general things and about what people think, because it is quite personal.
Correct, yeah.
And I guess working with somebody like you is you're asking. I mean, I've worked with and listened to you. You're asking questions about what they want to use the device for, to help them make those kinds of decisions. Like you are helping them source the right kind of technology for them.
Correct.
Based on what they're going to use it for, because I think that's the hardest thing, is you don't know what you don't know when it comes to stuff. Is most people having to buy it because the laptop's broken. I have to confess, I just go to my husband, I need a new laptop, and he goes and he sources it, and I don't have to do that. But if you haven't got somebody that you can talk to about these things, the first thing I would say is this, from what you just said, is you've got to be okay asking for that help. Two, you're going to have to get comfortable with people asking you questions you don't know the answer to, because you've never thought about it before. It's only occurred to me now, as we've had the conversation about these questions before, that I think that's one of the things. And certainly on the call this morning, when we were at the Academy group, we're actually looking at managing stress around technology when they get frustrated when it's not working. What I noticed, it was about people's confidence and reminding themselves, this is something new. Why should I know how to do it? So when you said about doing it again and again until you get proficient, I think that there is some kind of, would it be fair that your experience is that people have a high expectation of themselves, that they should know how to do it, even though they've never done it before? There seems to be a lack of patience with themselves on their abilities. They think that and I know some people worrying about being judged, that they come across as being a bit daft, or why can't I get it kind of thing. So from yours, it's get the device that works, get the right support. So when you're working with somebody, if they are sort of lacking that confidence, what's your strategies? What do you do with them to put them at ease? Or actually, I've just made that question up because I have no idea whether Tony does put them at ease, but I'm guessing he does from the other conversations.
I try to. The thing is, when you're asked the question, I've been in previous roles. I've been asked the question, the same sort of question, again and again and again by the same people, and all you can do is reinforce what you've told them before, explain the reasons why, and try and do it with a smile on your face, even if on the inside you're what you're thinking. I've answered this question for the 5 times already this month, and you're asking me again. But it is confidence in. It's all about it. It all comes back to the confidence in the device and the confidence that the person has about using the device. And yeah, so all you can do from an IT perspective in that sense is show them again, explain the reasons why you're going that way rather than another way, and like I said, do it with a smile on your face, so they feel at ease that you're not a burden. So many people call themselves tech Luddites and things like that, and they're not. They're just unconfident.
Yeah, or just lack experience, don't they, with those things? So I'm glad you're on board with managing the critics, so helping people to stop putting themselves down and just reframing how they talk about themselves when it comes to technology. There was something that came up for me and do you know, I hate that when you're having a conversation with somebody and you want to say something and then it completely goes. So I may have to end that there. But I think it was to do with actual spatial awareness, because I think that's the other thing. I don't think everybody knows this, because I wouldn't know it if my husband wasn't in IT. And you briefly mentioned it about being able to take control of people's screens.
Yes.
For some people, that could be quite terrifying, because especially when you've got the lovely people like Paul Newton reminding us about scammers and giving people access to our computers. You can be a bit nerve-wracking. You have to have confidence in the person who's supporting you as well as yourself, don't you? But I know from all the modelling we've ever done on how people learn, one of the biggest challenges with technology is spatially everything's together and hidden. So it's like you can't separate the information out. So if your brain works with that information brilliantly, that's great, but not all of us are gifted with that ability. And so what I have really appreciated in the past is when someone has taken over my screen, because if you're on virtual and someone's sharing it there and they're doing it but I can't do anything, I'm not there learning. Whereas when they're actually doing it with me and they can see on the screen, and sometimes even get me to do it, but they can point to it and they've got control of the mouse, so they can actually tell you what they're doing. It puts you back feeling more in control, because it's actually in front of you and you're watching it happen as it goes. So if we do nothing else, if you're watching this video, remember to do what's right for you and get the devices that work for you. Have confidence in the device, but also the people that are teaching you. And ask for different ways to have that information represented for you, because people just don't know, I don't think, that this sort of screen sharing stuff is available, and that people can make it easier for you to actually learn. And I'm just thinking, if Susie had used screen sharing, how much quicker it might have been if she was trying to help her do the Zoom. So we might give that to a tip later.
There are scammers out there
today.
There are scammers out there trying to take advantage of people. They're ringing up saying there's viruses on your machines and they want access to your machine. That's just so they can get your information. So you have to have that trust element. That know, like, and trust element is critical for any sort of remote support when it comes to remote controlling of a laptop or a desktop or even a mobile device.
So you don't want to give people access to any of this stuff that you haven't got a relationship with or a recommender or a referral to, because if it's just coming off cold, it's suspicious. As the bank would say, we will not contact you for your password. Do not give it to anybody else. And Paul will be very pleased because he's on in the series this time round about confidence online. But yeah, so there are people like Tony. So please contact him at bitsmart.tech if you have got any challenges with your technology, whether it's about sourcing it or actually using it. This is the go-to man to speak to. So thanks for joining us today, Tony, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you on the network.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. It's been great.